Welcome to Denley Digital. On today's episode, I will be talking about Illinois corruption. Now, my intention is to do an episode talking about why I left Illinois, and this is kind of indirectly related, but this is not going to be about my direct experiences quite just yet, because I want that to be all on its own episode, so nothing gets taken out of context. But I think this primer episode will kind of help give you a little bit better understanding about the context of the state of Illinois. Okay, so I'll try to tell this story chronologically. So first of all, to understand Elgin's supposed transparency initiative, you need to talk about the incident with the Cynthia Clements. That was, I think, 2017, back not long after I moved to Elgin. It was an officer-involved shooting. And because it was a small black woman that was shot, everybody cries racial injustice. That was even before the Black Lives Matter movement, I think, even began. But I always believed that that shooting was justified. I mean, if you charge at a police officer with a knife, you should expect deadly force to be used. And I suspect that was her intention. But I guess we can never know for sure now because she did die in that incident. But they released, so they did an independent investigation in the sense that they had a different police department, I think it's Illinois State Police or something, conduct the investigation. And it was very transparent because they actually released all of the body cam footage. There's all these different angles, so you saw detailed accounting of everything that happened. And basically, it was a police chase through Elgin that ended on 90, not far from my house, just a few miles away. And apparently there was some kind of standoff situation because she crashed her car into like the median barricade or whatever. So the police were there, they're already chasing her before, so they're just, trying to arrest her, but I guess she was wielding a knife. So they kept her distance, and it was like a standoff situation. And then apparently she set her car on fire. So they had been keeping their safe distance, but once the car was on fire, they were afraid she was gonna burn alive, so they had to act to do something. So they approached the vehicle, and when they did, she came out with a knife and charged at them. Now, some people were saying, well, they had tasers. Why not use a taser? Well, the thing about tasers is they have an effective range. And at that close range, the probes wouldn't spread far enough. So at that range, it would not work reliably, and then you're endangering your life and the lives of other officers. So I think if anything, Lieutenant Jensen was the officer's name, I think if anything, the only mistake he made was approaching the car when she set it on fire. Because I think she was trying to force them to approach the vehicle for that specific reason. But I think If they were afraid of the situation, they should not put themselves in danger with the pretense of trying to save her life from the situation she created for herself. And if they didn't approach, I think she'd still be alive today. I don't think she was trying to burn herself alive, and I think she would have changed her mind once the flames started burning her flesh. But I'm not going to fault him for trying to save her life in that situation. And then the Black Lives Matter movement started, I think around the same time as COVID. And there was actually a protest in Elgin. And I covered that protest with Christy at the time back in Illinois. That video is on this channel. Elgin Black Lives Matter protest or something like that. And I support the movement. I think there is a lot of racial injustice, but I think when you cry wolf like that, it only hurts the movement. You know, there are incidences that I think are very clear racially motivated discrepancies. You know, like the George Floyd attack, for instance. But the Cynthia Clemens incident, I don't think is one of them. But I think that is why the city of Elgin wanted their transparency initiative. So starting January 2021, for any complaints against police officers or anything, they were now required to have an independent investigation done. So I guess they eliminated internal affairs. I don't know if there was an internal affairs department before, but I think the intention and the end result of this transparency law is the opposite of the narrative that they're pushing. I don't think there is any increased transparency at all, and I don't think there's anything independent about those investigations. But in January 2021, right after that law came into effect, Jessica Lori De Leon, I think she was a detective at the time, not sure if she still is, but she was pulled over in January 2021 by St. Charles Police. She was pulled over for speeding, but once they pulled her over, well, first of all, she tried to flash her badge to get out of it, which is concerning but hardly surprising. But they noticed, they smelled alcohol on her breath, and she was slurring her speech, and her eyes were red and glassed over. At least that's what was reported based on what the officers that stopped her was saying, I guess. But they were trying to get her out of the car, and she was not complying. She was apparently defying police orders multiple times. She refused a breathalyzer test, which, you know, it is her right. She did eventually, I think when the supervisor got there, admit that she had one drink. But yeah, she was arrested and booked and everything. And apparently she was trying to get special treatment at jail too, trying to get out early or trying not to wear that standard jailhouse garments or whatever. And it was reported in the news. So I'm sure Chief Anna Lally felt compelled to release a statement in which she said that that's, one of those first cases where they were going to have to do that legally required independent investigation. But she was, I guess, talking on some radio show or something, talking about, oh yeah, anyone else in any other job, they would just go to work the next day and nobody would know because of this transparency law. Like, oh, it's so embarrassing for my poor detective that was drunk driving and trying to abuse her authority to get out of it. I mean, I've never been arrested, I've never gotten a DUI before, but I'm pretty sure when that happens, you're not going to work the next morning. You gotta go to court first and appear in front of a judge before you bail out. So I think any average person, unless they work odd hours or odd days or something like that, but if you work Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. or whatever, probably not going to make it to work the next day. So it'll be kind of hard to keep a DUI under wraps, especially if there's a police blotter about it. Am I just going in circles? Okay. So Jessica Lori De Leon, she was arrested. Chief Anna Lally publicly, she released this statement, I guess, on Facebook about how this independent, transparent investigation was going to be done. And I was interested in how my own investigation was conducted, since it was far from independent. The trails are kind of like washed over with sand. It's been a little stormy here lately. So I was very interested to see this investigation, since it was supposed to be the first one conducted, even before I filed my complaint. So I would request it, Freedom of Information Act request, and they'd say, no responsive documents. And I was like, how could there not be any responsive documents? The chief of police said was legally required. So what about that discrepancy? But they kept saying, no responsive documents. So I talked to the city attorney, Michael Gurman, G-H, I think it's pronounced Gurman, but he was very evasive in how he was answering questions. Like, I would ask, how is it possible that there's no responsive documents if it's legally required? And he wouldn't answer, he wouldn't talk specifics about the situation. He would only say, oh, well, it is possible that the investigation was not done yet because of a pending trial. So they had to wait for her to go to trial before they could do their investigation, supposedly. Well, I shouldn't even say supposedly, because he didn't even say it. It was a hypothetical. Hypothetically, they might have to wait for the trial before they could do their independent and transparent investigation. So I would keep, submitting FOIA requests to see, periodically from time to time, see if that had actually happened yet. And I mean, fairly recently, I finally got a different response. Instead of saying no responsive records, they just said, no, you don't have rights to this independent and transparent report because disciplinary records are exempt from the Freedom of Information Act request, so they are not required to provide that to the public. So much for transparency, and based on how my investigation went, it is anything but transparent, or anything but independence. I mean, think about it, how is this supposed to be independent? Who do you think is paying this law firm to do these investigations. The city is. The city is their client. And it shows in their investigations. So really, the end result of this is the independent investigation just gives them cover. Oh no, we were clear. This independent investigation said no wrongdoing. Oh well, what was the investigation actually done? You know, what did they actually investigate? Oh well, you don't have rights to that. That's exempt. Or even if you do get the independent investigation report, even if there are glaring problems which are easily proven, even though, you know, Chief Anna Lally is supposed to manage that investigation process and the Deputy Chief Adam Schuessler is supposed to be the liaison, I guess. Doesn't matter what glaring problems you find with the investigation, even if it is clearly anything but independent, even if the investigator simply lies in their conclusion, they still use it as cover. No, we were cleared by an independent investigation, case closed. So the end result of Elgin's transparency initiative is the complete opposite of the perception that they're promoting. Okay, so next I'll talk about how the state responded to the Highland Park shootings. So I'm not going to talk about that young man's name because I think that's part of the problem is these shooters want their 15 minutes of fame and the media sensationalizing these disproportionately gives them that 15 minutes of fame. But basically, he was 19, I think, and he used an AR-15 or some similar rifle, which he purchased legally, which in Illinois usually you can't if you're under 21 unless you get sponsored by a parent. And that is what he did. His dad sponsored him. But a couple years previously, the police were called to their residence because allegedly the young man had threatened to harm his family and the Highland Park police, they investigated that. But they decided it was a family matter and they weren't going to pursue criminal charges. But yet they reported the incident to the Illinois State Police with a clear and present danger form, which in Illinois that just goes to the FOID database so that when you go to apply for a FOID card, they can deny it based on these clear and present danger forms, rather than relying on, court documents and information that's been proven in the court of law with due process and all. So the whole point of the clear and present danger form is to avoid that inconvenient due process. So, after this shooting happened, everyone was all up in arms. How could this shooter legally get this gun when the police were there and they knew about this threat? And of course, Illinois, I guess I should say, the reason why the clear and present danger form did not prevent him from getting his FOID card is because Illinois State Police decided, whatever officer was reviewing it, that the clear and present danger form was not reliable because it was secondhand information. Of course, you know, if you really want to protect someone, protect the people of Illinois from this threat, based on what the Highland Park Police observed at that time, the constitutional approach would be to pursue that crime that you want to restrict his rights based on. Now, if you want to hold that crime against him, if you want that crime to take away his rights, then charge him with the crime, investigate the crime, get the court documents, get the truth on record in the court of law. But no, Illinois' approach, they don't say, well, we gotta investigate these crimes so that they are actually criminals and they aren't eligible for guns. But instead of doing that, instead of actually enforcing the law, they decide we need to change what constitutes a clear and present danger, so that next time, this secondhand, unreliable information can be used to restrict someone's rights. Because in Illinois, they don't care about the accuracy of information. You know, the governor said that, oh, low battery. I don't want to wait too long. I'll finish this on a fresh battery. I don't want to repeat the last time. Okay, back at it again. The new drone battery. Guess I'm talking a little too much. One thing I did forget to mention, Jessica Laurie De Leon, with her DUI arrest, she has nothing about that on her criminal record, which I was kind of surprised, a little concerned about, but I did a little research, you know, because I never dealt with a DUI before, but I was a little surprised to learn that, you know, like speeding tickets in Illinois, you know, because I've gotten speeding tickets in Illinois and I always get court supervision because I don't get that many speeding tickets, and I think it's like, you know, if you go 6 months without getting another ticket, then it stays off your record. And I guess Nevada has something kind of similar, except with regards to misdemeanor DUIs to keep it off your record. That's a little surprising to me because of how big of a problem that DUIs are. I mean, nobody should have the right to travel intoxicated. But it just seems completely crazy to me how, for operating a vehicle, they cannot take your license away. They cannot even put something on your criminal record or even your traffic record. Like, nothing can be even reported to insurance until it is proven in the court of law. Because we have the right to travel. That is a constitutional right. And yeah, you need a license to operate a motor vehicle, but everybody takes the same driving tests and seeing exam or whatever, and that license cannot be taken away, cannot be infringed on without due process. So why is it that some people think that the Second Amendment, our right to bear arms, constitutionally protected, but that does not require due process to infringe on? That does not require anything to be proven in court. You could just put whatever you want in the clear and present danger form, and then the Illinois State Police could deny them their FOIA application or revoke the FOIA card they already have without due process based on unreliable information. Well, to the Illinois State Police's credit, now it's probably not how most people will see it, but to their credit, they did deny that young shooter in Highland Park, or they did allow his FOIA application because that information was unreliable. However, with such a high-profile case, how do you think that the police, the local police in the state of Illinois, are going to respond to that? Knowing that in this high-profile case, the information they reported was ignored because it was secondhand. All the police in Illinois have to do to get around that is to take a play out of the Elgin Police playbook. If you don't want information to be ignored because it is secondhand, then don't report it as secondhand. Just simply state it as a fact. And that is exactly what the Elgin Police did for me. But more on that on the next episode. But it just seems completely crazy to me, the approach that some people take to gun control. I mean, it's overly simplistic to say, oh no, the more restrictions we put in place, the more safer we're all going to be. So who cares if we're infringing on the constitutional rights of law-abiding citizens in the process, because we just have to make people safer. Because, 7 people died in Highland Park, so we had to take emergency measures, bypass the legislature, and change exactly in what situations we could actually infringe on someone's constitutional rights. And I mean, there have been studies done to try to determine the efficacy of different gun control measures. And it's pretty hit and miss. Like, the only ones that show to actually reduce the rates of firearm mortality, not just murders or crime, but just mortality in general from firearms specifically. So there's already some concerns with those statistics because, does that include defensive shootings that are legit, police shootings, or suicides? I mean, if you're worried someone's going to kill themselves, so you won't let them buy a gun, they'll just buy a noose. What do you think? You really think that's going to stop them? But studies show that the only gun control measures that actually reduce the rate of firearm deaths is like background checks and identity laws. So you have to identify yourself to make sure you are who you are and that you don't have some criminal record. And in Nevada, I'm told, we have a background check. I had to pass my background check before I could buy my rifle. And it took a while, but it was over Thanksgiving, so that's probably why there was that delay. But I'm told that the state of Nevada has some of the most thorough background checks of all the states. You know, some of them, they just put in a phone call to the ATF or whatever. It's like, you know, do you have any prohibitors in the NCIS database? Do you have a criminal record? No, then you're good. But I guess the state of Nevada goes a little bit more thorough. But you know, I have no problem with universal background checks. You know, just like getting a driver's license, you know, you do have to pass the test, and it's a standard, fair test. It's like a background check. Everyone's held to the same standards, and you can only have facts, court records, you know, proven facts in the court of law used against you because of a criminal conviction or whatever, instead of just hearsay. But I think that's enough of my little rants for today. And I'm still planning on telling my whole story, that whole personal, embarrassing story. I'm still hoping I get more subscribers though, so make sure you subscribe so I know you're listening. Otherwise, I might just, you know, post that video as unlisted and just, you know, and someone asks me, why did you leave Illinois? I could share that video. And then I don't need to try to go through that whole long, complicated story. If they really want to know, they could see that video, and then they know the full context. And they could judge me fairly based on the full context. Not just the bullshit that Officer Chad Benavidez of the Elgin Police Department claims he believed at the time. And I think this next episode will show it more clearly, but I think it is very clear that police in Elgin in general, or more specific, or police in Illinois in general, and more specifically, Chief Anna Lally of the Elgin Police Department, are not concerned with the accuracy of information that they are weaponizing against you. And they will use their authority to do whatever they can, regardless whether it's for the benefit of the people of Elgin or not. So make sure you like and subscribe, especially if you want that video to be posted public. Signing off from here in Pahrump as I come to the edge of the desert. Thank you for watching. It's getting a little windy out. I better bring the drone down.